Welcome back to Epic Movie Home. Today I'll be showing you a horror action movie of 1998, titled Blade. Late at night, a pregnant woman was brought to a hospital with a repellent wound. The doctors thought it was an injury from wild animals and tried to keep her alive, only for Vanessa to start giving birth. After hours of strenuous activity, a baby boy is born and taken away, resulting to Vanessa's death. Several years later, an attractive woman brought a naive man to a giant fridge, only to surprise him with a hidden entrance to an exclusive nightclub. They join the dancing group, but soon, the man realizes something weird about the club. Suddenly, a few drops of blood fall on his face, and when he looks up, he finds a sprinkler system showering down blood all over the place. It was then he got to know the nightclub turns out to be a vampire club. The guy tries escaping from the place, but he freezes when he sees a tall dark man in suite, that makes the party comes to an abrupt end. His name is Blade, but the vampires calls him Daywalker. He entered into the dance floor in a dynamic way, and immediately begins to savage slaughter of the vampires, using the combo of martial and firearms to take them off without mercy. His weapons are custom made with silver on the gun bullets and the blades, which the vampires are weak to. After minutes of fighting with the vampires, Blade is surrounded by the club guards led by Quinn. This led to another intense battle, but this time, Blade uses his sword and shuriken to kill a bunch of vampires at the same time. Next he went after Quinn, pinning him to the wall with stakes and setting him ablaze. At that moment, Blade hears the siren of the police vehicles and quickly runs away from the scene, leaving the burnt body of Quinn and a very perplexed human as the only survivor. Assuming he's dead, the police takes the remnant of Quinn's body to the hospital for examination. Karen, the chosen doctor for the exam, immediately sees there's something weird about his blood sample. During the examination, Quinn shockingly returns to life and feeds on both Karen and her colleague. However, Blade enters into the morgue, having already expected this. He attacked the revived Quinn, but Quinn fled and jumps out of the building, landing inside an ambulance before running away. Blade sees Karen bleeding on the floor begging for help. Her face reminds Blade of his mother, so he picks Karen up and takes her with him, while he jumps to another roof, dodging the bullets coming from the cops. By the time they will make it to his hideout, Karen has already become unconscious. Blade's friend, Whistler, injects her with a serum so as to prevent her from transforming into a vampire. If she becomes a vampire, Whistler reminds Blade he must eliminate her. Meanwhile, in the meeting room of the House of Erebus, the Vampire Shadow Council is holding a meeting. Elder Dragonetti discusses Blade's recent attacks and scolds Frost, a young vampire, for running reckless nightclubs. It's then known that most vampires believes that they should coexist with humans while maintaining a powerful occult organization like the Mafia, while renegades like Frost believes they should be ruled outright. The whole council is pure blood vampires, but Frost isn't, yet he swears to destroy their old ways one day. By daylight, Blade stops by a friend's shop to get more garlic serums, explaining he's becoming resistant to it. His friend unfortunately can't help it and hugs him, as he reminds him to be careful. Later, Karen wakes up in a strange room and is shocked seeing a wall full of weapons, including a sword with a trick handle. When she comes out, she notices Whistler injecting Blade with a serum, which makes his whole body shake. She tries to run away, however, Blade and Whistler immediately block her path and assures her she's in safe hands. Whistler is Blade's mentor and weapon technician, and together they fight against vampires with silver bullets, UV lights and garlic. They can't tender this to the police because the vampires had bought them off. Now it's time for Karen to leave, but before then, Whistler gives her a weapon known as the Vampire Menace, so she can protect herself from the vampires that will surely come after her. When she arrives at her building, Karen becomes suspicious of anyone she sees, especially people with weird tattoos on their neck. A policeman, Krieger, was waiting for her in her apartment. At first he pretends he's there because she left the hospital without leaving a statement. But suddenly attacks her as he reveals is a familiar, a human being who serves vampires and after years of service might get rewarded by being turned to a vampire. Blade suddenly shows up, expecting an incident like that because he has been using Karen as a bait to lure vampires. Blade shows Karen the tattoo on the officer's neck before deciding they'll be using him to track down Frost. When they checked Krieger's car, they found out the truck is loaded with bags full of blood and this made Blade to take out his gun, demanding for an explanation. Karen stops him before creating chaos in the city, and Krieger gets to run away. Blade decides to wait inside the car for Krieger to appear again and Karen announces she's staying with him. When night falls, Krieger comes to pick up his car, and Blade immediately begins to chase after him through the city. Eventually, they make it to a nightclub managed by vampires, and when they try to get inside, a guard denies them access into the club, but Blade taught him a great lesson. Inside the club, Blade engaged into more fights with the guards until Krieger tells him about a hidden entrance in the fridge that takes him to a secret basement. After sending Krieger away with a message for Frost, Blade and Karen check the place and come across a gloomy vampire known as Pearl, who is in charge of the vampire's data and systems. Meanwhile, Frost manages to finish the translation of the ancient texts. Krieger arrives to warn him about Blade's message, but Frost kills him and shares him with his girlfriend. Then he orders Quinn to catch Blade alive. Back to Pearl. At first he doesn't want to cooperate, but Karen begins to burn him with a UV light and Pear quickly begins spilling everything. Frost is planning to summon a blood god named La Magra. Blade steals a hard drive with the information and then uses a special explosive spray to blow up the door, behind which they find the ancient vampire Bible. Suddenly Blade hears a noise and finds a scared little girl, but when he tries to help her, she reveals herself to be a vampire and attacks him. Quinn arrives with more guards leading to another fight during which Blade gets tied to a pillar, and Quinn takes the chance to stab him in revenge. One of the vampires grabs Blade's sword, only to lose his hand to the trap in the handle. At that moment Blade reveals he's been wearing an earphone in case he needed help and the wall explodes, revealing Whistler. After exchanging a few more shots and punches, Blade, Whistler, and Karen run down a tunnel before a bomb Whistler left behind explodes. While inside a train, Blade injects himself with a blood serum, and Karen begins suspecting Blade is a vampire. When they made it to the hideout, Whistler explains to Karen that Blade's mother had been bitten while she was pregnant and died after childbirth. He'd been a lost kid on the streets when Whistler found him and he almost killed him, but he realized he wasn't an actual vampire and decided to adopt him. Blade is half vampire, half human, which allows him to have certain abilities like strength and regeneration, but he can still walk under the sun. The serum he takes prevent him from developing a need for drinking blood. In the morning, Karen decides to use Whistler's research to find a permanent cure with Blade's serum as a base, but her first result makes the vampire blood explode. After Karen takes a sample of his blood while Blade leaves to buy more ingredients for his serum, and Whistler checks the wound on Karen's neck, saying she has only 1 day left. While he's downtown, Blade finds Frost waiting for him while he's wearing a sunglass. He's holding a little kid as a shield so Blade won't attack him and offers a truce, but Blade knows Frost wants to bring the blood god back and is against it. He pulls out his gun and shoots, but Frost throws the girl into traffic and runs away. Blade has no choice but to save the girl first, loosing his prey. At the hideout, Karen manages to make a proper curing serum that she immediately injects herself with. At that moment Frost and his men arrives beating up Whistler and left with a kidnapped Karen. When Blade returns, he is sad to find Whistler's dying by. Whistler tells him after looking through the hard drive, he found out that Frost's ritual will need the blood of a daywalker like Blade. He told Blade he doesn't want to become a vampire, and Blade, respecting his wish, gave him a gun to end things for himself. Afterwards Blade finds a taunting video from Frost, asking him to come find him and giving him the address. Filled up with grief, Blade arms himself up with silver and the new serum before leaving to find Frost. Moments later, Blade breaks into Frost's location using a bike. On the first floor, he killed every guard that dares come in his way with ease. On the next floor, he fights hand to hand with two vampires skilled in martial arts, but after exchanging a few punches, Blade injects them with the serum that makes them explodes. When he finally makes it to Frost's room, Blade finds a shocking surprise. Vanessa is still alive. She became a vampire minutes after giving birth. In fact, it had been Frost who bit her, and now she's his mistress. This distraction makes Frost and his guards catch him from behind and beats him to submission. Afterwards, Blade and Karen are taken to the Temple of Eternal Night, and Blade can't defend himself because his body is weak from bloodthirst. Frost reveals he has stolen the vials with the serum and throws them to the bottom of the pit before sending Blade away to the ritual spot. Karen is pushed into a hole where she finds her colleague who has now become a vampire. Karen uses few bones she found to hit him before starting to climb out of the hole. Meanwhile, Blade is tied to a huge contraption for the ritual, then the contraption closed and it begins to extract Blade's blood. Upstairs, Frost lines the council members around the temple, and when one of them tries to resist, Frost's girlfriend kills him. Blade's blood begins to fall on all of them and on Frost at the center. A huge lightning hits the temple, killing the entire council and passing their powers to Frost, making him the ultimate vampire god. Back to Karen, she finds Blade and frees him from the contraption, but he's obviously too weak to survive. Karen removes her bandage and convinces him to drink her blood, which instantly leaves him in an enraged state. At that moment Vanessa arrives and Blade immediately begins fighting her, ignoring her when she tries to sweet-talk him into his loving dear mom, and killed her. Afterward Blade rushes upstairs, and when Quinn tries to stop him, Blade destroys him in no time. Feeling powerful, thanks to having drunk real blood instead of serum, Blade begins fighting the guards in a ferocious manner, without needing any weapons to kill them. Karen goes after Frost's girlfriend, missing a few shots but remembering to use the vampire menace at the last seconds to get rid of her. After recovering his sword, Blade fights Frost in a vigorous sword battle. Blade manages to cut Frost into many pieces, but Frost's new powers allows him to instantly regenerate his body parts. They begins exchanging hits again, but Frost is too strong and stabbing him does nothing. At that moment Blade notices the serum that fell earlier and throws his sword to retrieve them. Then he injects Frost all of them at the same time, causing him to explode. At the end, Blade and Karen escapes from the temple, and Karen offers Blade her cure. Blade refuses, because curing him of his need for blood would also remove his Daywalker powers and he would be unable to hunt vampires, but he wants to keep protecting the city. Soon he's spotted in Moscow, ready to take out a vampire. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and click on one of the videos above, to enjoy more content.